Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Stephen and Oliver Show. And we've got a really interesting one at the moment because as I sit here off camera, Stephen's daughter Bluebell is here. But that is because we're in the middle of half term. So we thought, well, that's a really interesting time to talk about how do you balance work and the school holidays. Now, this is something that's luckily now not my thing. My daughter's 19 at university, my son's 25, but I've been there. And it is challenging. However, you're living it still live now. So, Stephen, over to you. When you think of that, what comes to mind? I appreciate you guys and Bluebell in particular for squeezing this in and allowing us because we got a little bit out of sync, hadn't we, with our episodes. So, a big thank you to Bluebell for letting her dad come and record these episodes today. But how does it work for you? And what would you say to people?
I mean, it's one of those ones where I really wanted to talk about it because it affects mums and dads and guardians, and it's one of those ones where what do you do? And what I want to highlight today is more around employers having more understanding and flexibility, and also communities having more understanding. I'll give you an example. So, I will have to take my daughter to various things, and there'll be business things, because they'll be in the day and she'll be with me, and you can definitely sense sometimes a feeling of why is she here or why would you do that? And it's just having that sort of understanding that actually things still have to happen. And when you work for yourself, if you don't work, you don't get paid, right? So the reality is, it becomes difficult and juggling. And I see parents, I see fathers, I see carers really stressed at these times because it's like they've got to get to that point at a certain time, then they've got to get here, and then they've got to do that, and then they've got to do that. And it can be quite stressful. I've just come back from the Nest where I was picking something up, and it was absolutely rammed because it's half term. And how many of those parents would have had to drop one child off one place, get to another place? And it's just really having that sort of forethought to think about, as an employer, are we doing everything possible to try and help our employees so it's easier at these certain times of the year? And as a community, do we understand that actually sometimes it's necessary to have the children at functions, especially when they're at lunchtime or in the day? A bit different if it's a function at 9 and 10 o'clock at night. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying most things, business things will happen in the daytime. And in your head, you're looking at that thinking, why are they here? Why does that need to happen? And it's that side. So that's why I really wanted to touch on this one. And I'm sure there'll be loads of listeners resonating with this one.
Yeah, well, no, it makes sense. And actually, I go beyond just the holidays. So I had a client a couple of days ago that we were meeting, and his kids are big in sport. So there's lots of after school stuff going on there. And he was talking about how, I don't know how to put this tactfully. He was away for a few weeks and things didn't quite go so well, shall we say. And how frustrating that is because, he was able to handle the stress of it. And this is what I explained to him. I said, look, what you are capable of putting up with is considerably more than your partner because you've learned it, you've managed it. He has a high stress, high profile job, but he's used to balancing things and so forth, whereas his partner isn't. And so a little bit of also understanding in terms of the household as well. So employers, yes, 100%. I think there's this big clamoring now to get people back in the office and stopping the working from home. I don't like all the terminologies that come up, things like hybrid working and so forth, but people understand what I mean by hybrid working. We need this. So we're not saying, no, you don't need everyone back into the office, or you don't need everybody out of the office, but there needs to be some balance. It's only this morning playing golf with somebody who is so relieved that his company is allowing him to work from home, but he has the option of coming into the office. Yeah. But as long as he's doing his job and doing his work, the hell does it matter? Why does there need to be this directive? I saw, I was actually going to do a podcast on my own on this one, but I'll bring it up now. There was an article written and a video supporting it by the owner of Brewdog and his partner, a celebrity and they were talking about how the British publishers need to get this idea of working from home out of their heads. Why? First and foremost, as a founder of a business, not really the best place to do. Secondly, as the founder of an alcoholic or an alcohol-based business, I'm not sure where your moral compass is anyway. So I don't really understand why you feel that it's appropriate to talk about this sort of thing anyway, because I think your business line is questionable. It's fine, but ultimately having opinions on people's morals and values and stuff, I just think, I don't know, that's risky ground for me. But I also think it's incredibly easy for people who are the owners of business to tell everybody that they should feel passionate, that they should feel like they want to come in, that they should give up these dreams of a work-life balance, and a work-life balance is some sort of myth. No, none of those things are true. You as a business owner might want them, but ultimately, are you getting engaged, happy staff who want to do things for you when you're making their lives even more difficult? No. So it's actually a lot more meatier subject than just how do you manage school holidays, because it comes into everything, doesn't it? Do you want your employees to be able to work to the best of their ability? Do you want them to be engaged? Well, then you need to find out stuff about them. You need to know what works for them and flip it around with the people who don't have kids or other needs and so forth. Don't ignore them. Because if you're making exceptions and being flexible for people with families, well, just make sure that you're not just presuming that the other people will cover for them or do the things that need to be done and so forth. And this is the thing that I get frustrated with in the 21st century, that we still don't see anywhere near enough businesses actually, I'm not saying asking what their staff like, but genuinely caring.
Yeah.
There's some people out there who, previous episode, we were talking about being authentic, weren't we? There's a lot of businesses out there who will say they care, but they don't walk the walk. They talk the talk, say the words, but then when it actually comes to it, it's like, oh, actually, no, could you just?
Yeah.
So, I don't know, for me, it goes wider than just simply school. I mean, I've said a lot there, so what anything triggered for you?
Well, it's that whole thing as well, isn't it? It's about, do you want to get the best out of me or not?
Yeah.
If you want to get the best out of me, then actually there's some things that you need to know about me, and there's some things that you need to support me on, and then you will get the best out of me. Yeah. And I think that's what's at its core. And then I will even go even deeper than that. The word that I often have to use to justify what I do as a mentor and coach is that element of productivity. And the moment you drop that in, everyone then realizes, oh, okay, I get it now. Yeah. And I think at the bottom of this is productivity. If you want people to be more productive, then you need to be doing things that helps them in their everyday life. Because I'm telling you now, the stress of thinking to yourself, am I going to get there in time? Am I going to be able to do that? Am I going to be able to make sure that this is right for my child? Am I going to make sure I get them to football clubs? That kind of stress does not deliver productivity, because that kind of stress it's worry, there's anxiety and all the rest of it. And there might be some people listening to going, oh yeah, whatever. Well, don't do that job then. But my point is, I don't think it's as simple as that anymore in the world that we live in. Fact, hybrid working has helped us no end. Fact, hybrid working has sometimes meant that we've had to be a bit different, do things differently to get the best outcome in the office. True. But what I'm saying is you have to think about things logically, and you have to think a bit further than what you would normally think. I remember being in a boardroom 6 years ago. I won't say what the business was, where they were absolutely not. You cannot work from home. Absolutely. What are you talking about? That's never going to happen. We don't have the systems. We don't have the infrastructure. It's never going to happen. COVID hit. That particular business made sure that all of their people could work from home. Why? Because it benefited them at the time. Otherwise, they wouldn't have the business. Yeah. And I think sometimes we have to think a bit more outside the box. You have to think a little bit more wider. We need to think a little bit more holistic in order that we get the best out of our people. Because fundamentally, what the guy at Brewdog was actually trying to say was he was actually trying to talk about harmony in the workplace and improving productivity. You can still get that productivity, but you just need to do things slightly different. You might have a bi-weekly meetup or a monthly meetup where you go a bit deeper than normal. You might have some more sort of outside of the office things that you do. You have to look at it differently to build that confidence. I still have value in the coffee, tea making conversation. I still know there's value in the walking past each other in a corridor. I absolutely believe there's value in that. But what I also believe is we've got to do things differently to still get that value. Yeah. And that's the bit. So it's not all just going to happen. We've got to think of it differently. A happy me is a happy me in everything that I do. So that means you have to build in my life circumstances into that. It's not like, oh, we can't do that because that means it's going against our company norm. No, I think it's bigger than that. I think we need to have that flexibility. We need to be agile. We need to be able to pivot. We need to have that flexibility.
Yeah, and you know what? I personally, this is a belief. I don't have any facts to back this up, so it's just an opinion. But I believe in the vast majority of cases where this happens, there is just a lack of trust. And if you're employing people that you don't trust, you've got problems, and it goes beyond working from home and culture and all these sorts of things. You know, it might be down to the fact that, you know, there's a micromanager in you there somewhere and you can't let go, won't let go, or it might be the fact that you don't believe your staff will do what they need to do. And that's true. You know, there are definitely people that are abusing this system, but there's always ways of checking that out. There's ways of performance managing. Blimey, there's stuff you can put on people's computers for software if you need to. And to be honest, if people are doing, I never really understand the resistance to that from staff, because if you're doing what you should be doing, what does it matter if they're checking your computer? So I'm always a little skeptical when there's resistance for that. But at the same time, that is quite, you know, it's quite, I don't know, big brotherish, isn't it, to have that? So it's a difficult balance. But ultimately, if someone's giving you cause for concern, then absolutely slap that software on their equipment and see what they're doing for a period of time and agree it with them. Tell them this is what we're doing because we're not confident. You don't. So there are people that are probably taking the pee. There are people that probably don't work well at home, are easily distracted, all these sorts of things. But it doesn't mean that for that week of half term or whatever that we shouldn't allow it still. And it's that thing you talk about there, productivity. I mean, you know me, I throw out my Gallup stats all the time. And they regularly do the state of the global workplace statistics. And engagement in all countries is down, even the US, which was growing to much higher. And this will surprise people listening, but the engagement of staff in the US is double that of Europe. So anybody sitting here maybe looking at American businesses and thinking they don't know what they're doing, think again. They are smashing Europe out of the park for employee engagement. And it's still the case, even though it's going down, it's still much higher than here. And that is because they are much more aware of the personal development side of things. I've started, as you know, working in the US, and I'm blown away by how more receptive they are to all this sort of stuff. So that's a really interesting side product or side point that comes out of this. But ultimately, you employ as a business staff, they are an expense. Let's look at it brutally. They cost a lot of money. Would you rather they're working at 50, 60% capacity or nearer 80, 90% capacity?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're happy with 50, 60% capacity, do what you like. Doesn't matter. You'll be fine. You won't do well, but you won't necessarily break. Most businesses can survive. But what? Your staff are costing you, say, £300,000, shall we say, for a team. And you could be getting £600,000 worth of value out of that. Or if they are maybe bringing in a certain amount of money and you could double that by being nice, being considerate, being flexible. I mean, why wouldn't you do that? This is what I don't get. And I know we sit here with the gift of knowledge and experience from people and teams and projects we've done. But it's not difficult to work out that if you get people 100% behind you and engaged in what you're doing and more productive, your profitability goes up.
And it goes,
help me.
And do you know what, Oliver? It goes back to that lovely word you use, which is trust. And it's the thing, when I work with companies, it's the thing that's at the center of so many issues, communication issues, is trust. Yeah. Why employ someone to do a certain job, but then you're looking over their shoulders, but you've employed them to do that job? Why, I'd even go against this thing around having things software put on the computers, because then you're just telling people we don't trust you, so Big Brother's watching you. And I think that's one of the issues. And I think it always comes down to that. And listen, I'm not stupid. I know that there's always going to be that small percentage that take the mick. but you're always going to have that small percentage. And, you know, I learned a very long time ago, early doors in my career, why should I let the 5% that are absolutely taking the mick impact the 95% that are actually doing wonderful and great things? So, you know, I know we started with on one thing here, but actually what it's actually saying is, if you want someone to work at the best of their ability and to a capacity that is as high as possible, then you need to know more about them in order that you can give them the best working environment possible. And communities need to accept that business doesn't stop because it's school holidays, and we still need to feel comfortable doing what we do.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a certain amount of flexibility about that and understanding.
Yeah. And like a final point with the trust thing, I don't want to sort of ram it too much down anybody's throat, but I'm not suggesting, so if you have some trust issues, accepting it is the first step. The second thing is, you're not going to be trusting them with the crown jewels on day one. Give these people, whoever they are, that you're not willing to do it at the moment, give them something small. Let them prove themselves. I know you hate this. I know you hate the idea of proving trust. People should have trust in the start and learn to earn to keep it. I get it. Where that isn't in place, just covering off Stephen's response, then give them some things to help them show you how committed they are, how good they are, and you will be pleasantly surprised. But if you give them something really important straight away and it goes wrong, A, that's not their fault, and B, you will then give yourself an excuse to not trust them again. So give them something small and manageable. Not everyone will achieve it, and then you've learned a valuable lesson that some people aren't up to it, aren't where you need them to be. But you know what? Most people will. And then you can start increasing the things that you trust and entrust to them. And in time, you'll begin to realize how much more free that is for you as well, and how much more flexibility you have, and so forth and so on. So I think that I know we talked about school holidays at the start, and we've kind of hoodwinked everybody into a far wider conversation. But as a final say-so for you and final point, what would you conclude on this episode? Because I said more than enough.
I think it's just having that understanding, asking more questions, really understanding that, are you getting the best out of that person? And if the answer to any of those is you're unsure, then you need to just keep asking those questions. And also to the people that are in that situation, don't be afraid to push the envelope. Don't be afraid to push the envelope, because guess what? Your children, you can't get that time back. Let me tell you. My daughter's in the studio today, and yes, me and Oliver are doing a show. She's listening to that show. She might learn something, quite educational. And also she gets to see what her father does, which I think is beautiful. I think there's so much beauty in that as well. So again, why can't, children sometimes go in on a work day? What's the big deal? We see some of these companies that are much more relaxed and chilled out, that actually they get more out of their people because of it. One company that I can just think about locally, Pivotal, those guys just feel like one big family, and they just seem like the people really want to work there and really want to be part of it because of the way that they're treated. So that's my final word. Yeah, no, that's a great point, because that's what we all strive for, that sort of family feel, that engagement. Those people are going to want to go the extra mile for the people that look out for them and so forth, aren't they? So for me, it's a no-brainer. I know we come from one side of the fence though, but if anybody's listening to this and it maybe sort of triggers them a little bit, reach out. We'll have a chat. We'll have an argument. We'll have a debate, whatever. The only fact, you just come to that meeting knowing that we're right. But other than that, by all means, have a chat. But no, in all seriousness, if it has triggered you in any way, shape or form, Steve and I are always, as you know, happy to chat, reach out. All our platforms have got contact details on them. And so don't hesitate. So until the next one, have a good one.